Obandes. 17 family photographs, 4 decades, different locations, different occasions, the same man in the background of everyone, dark, wearing a hat, always slightly apart from the family, always looking directly at the camera. She had handled every print without noticing. It was only when she spread them all across the floor that she understood. He had been there all along, at every occasion, watching. Don't look too carefully at your own family photographs tonight. It is time for chapter 142. Most things hidden in plain sight rely on the particular way human attention works, scanning for what is expected and filtering out what is not. A figure in the background of a family photograph is not expected, is not what the photograph is of, is not what the eye goes to. Which is how a man in a hat can appear in 17 photographs across 4 decades without being noticed, until the night someone spreads them all across the floor and suddenly sees what was always there. Looking back. From the background. From the slightly out-of-focus spaces where attention rarely goes, but where someone had apparently been standing, at every occasion, for 40 years, wearing the same hat, looking at the same camera, watching the same family. A woman had inherited a box of old family portraits and photographs following her mother's passing. Occasions she remembered and occasions that predated her. She had gone through them carefully, handling each print with the particular attention of someone sorting through inherited memory, had set aside those she wanted to keep, had spread the remainder across the floor of the main room one evening, all 4 decades laid out in sequence, intending to sort through them properly before storing them away. She was perhaps halfway through when she noticed the figure, a man, in the background of a photograph from what appeared to be a garden gathering, dark, wearing a hat, standing slightly apart from the group, looking directly at the camera. She looked at the photograph carefully. The man was partially obscured by the people in the foreground, slightly out of focus in the way that background elements are slightly out of focus when the camera is focused on foreground subjects. She would not have noticed him handling the print casually, but with all the photographs spread across the floor, she had been looking at each one with more attention than usual. And having noticed him once, she could not stop noticing him. She checked the next photograph. Different occasion, different location, same man, same hat, same position slightly apart from the group, same direct gaze at the camera. She began going through every photograph on the floor with the focused attention of someone who has found a thread and intends to follow it. If these stories have found their way to you, if you find yourself returning to this quiet room, there is something small you can do, like and subscribe. It tells me, and whatever else watches from this room, that you were here and that you intend to find your way back. She found him in 17 photographs, spanning the full 4 decades, present at occasions separated by years and by geography, a family wedding, a New Year gathering, an ordinary afternoon in a garden, a formal portrait outside a house she recognized as her grandmother's. At every occasion, the significant and the ordinary, the man in the hat was in the background, always slightly apart, always partially obscured, always looking at the camera rather than at the people being photographed. She gathered the 17 photographs and laid them side by side, looked at each one in sequence. The man in the hat looked back from every one, with the same patient attention, across 4 decades of her family's life. Shakoi, that patience, cold in the way of something that has been watching for a very long time and has no particular reason to stop. I wonder, have you ever looked carefully at the backgrounds of your own family photographs, the spaces behind the people being photographed? Perhaps there is someone there you have never noticed, perhaps someone wearing a hat. Granny is always listening. She showed the photographs to her aunt, the oldest living member of her family. Her aunt went through the 17 photographs slowly, looking at the man in the hat in each one. She was quiet for a long time, then said she remembered her own mother mentioning a figure that appeared in family photographs, had mentioned it only once, had said simply that he had always been there, as far back as the photographs went, that he had been there before any of them were born, that he watched but did not interfere, that he had always watched but never interfered. Her aunt handed the photographs back, said she had always assumed her mother was speaking about something she did not fully understand. Looking at the 17 photographs now, she was less certain. You are still here. Good. Some stories need a witness all the way to the end. I wonder if you found him in your own family photographs. Would you want to know how far back he goes? She found the oldest photograph in the collection tucked separately at the bottom of the box, wrapped carefully in old cloth, a formal portrait, her great-grandparents on their wedding day. She unwrapped it carefully, looked at it for a long time, then turned it over. Her great-grandmother had written on the back in faded ink, a single line, "He has always been with us. He means no harm, simply watches." She turned the photograph back over, found him immediately now that she knew to look. In the background, behind the wedding guests, wearing the hat, looking directly at the camera, as he had looked at every camera at every occasion across 4 decades, and apparently for considerably longer than that. I think about what it means to watch over a family for generations, not interfering, not announcing a presence, simply being there, at the wedding, at the New Year gathering, at the ordinary afternoon in the garden, in the background, wearing the hat, looking at the camera with the patient attention of something that has appointed itself the witness of this particular family's life, and has been keeping that appointment since before any of them were born. Most presences are understood as something requiring resolution, something to be explained or removed. But a figure in a hat who has watched 4 generations of the same family from the background of their photographs, who means no harm and simply watches, is not something requiring resolution. It is simply something that has always been there. Ndania. Some watchers have been watching for longer than anyone thought to look for them. I find their patience entirely familiar. Another whispered story from Japan, shared quietly here beside the kotatsu. If you inherit old family photographs, spread them all across the floor one evening, all 4 decades, all the occasions, and look at the backgrounds, not the people being photographed, the spaces behind them, the slightly out of focus areas where attention rarely goes. Look for a figure slightly apart from the group, wearing a hat, looking at the camera rather than at the family. And if you find him, in one photograph or in 17, check the oldest photograph you have. Turn it over, because someone in your family may have written something on the back. Long ago, for exactly the person who would eventually spread all the photographs across the floor and finally look carefully enough at the backgrounds to find what was always there, watching, in the hat, at every occasion, for longer than the photographs go back. If this story stayed with you, if the dark or the shadow feels a little closer tonight, you know where to find me. I am always here beside the kotatsu, watching, waiting. And if you wish others to find their way here too, there is something small you can do. Like and subscribe. I would not object.